Hello YouTube. Just thought I'd make a diesel truck video since they seem to do pretty well on here, even though they also seem to attract a lot of controversy. Like that last video I made, floating gears in the 12 valve Cummins, that was a donor truck and that motor and trans was gonna get pulled no matter what, and it was just a one and done type deal. But anyways, that's in the past. That's not my truck anyways. This is my truck. This is a 2000 7.3 liter Powerstroke F250 Super Duty. I got this truck out of Louisiana and I've owned it for about a year and some change, and it has been dead nuts reliable the whole time, never left me stranded. I drove it 1,700 miles from Mississippi to where I live now in the Northeast, and I still drive the truck every day. I have a beater car, but unfortunately my brother has to use it for a little while, so I'm back in this, and I wanted to talk about some functional and cheap mods that you can do if you have one of these trucks, and hopefully some of you guys find them helpful. And if there's other mods that I can do to this thing that are cheap and functional, please tell me. So yeah. So the first mod I wanted to talk about is getting a gauge, and a lot of people get the triple gauge cluster with like one boost, one pyrometer, one trans temp sensor, and I found a cheaper option which is called the Glow Shift 3-in-1. You can choose what you want your main gauge to be. I chose mine to be a pyrometer, and there's a little screen. Actually, I can just show you if I hop in the truck and fire it up. If I can find my keys. Sorry. So yeah, you got your pyrometer as your main gauge, and then you got your boost and trans temp sensor as your secondary gauges. I drove the truck already today, which is why it's so warm, but I find this very functional because you can at least monitor what the engine's doing at all times, and it tells you a lot more than the basic factory gauge cluster does. That's just a dummy coolant temperature gauge. There's no trans temp sensor gauge, at least on this model. This is the 2000 model, but you can see when I rev it up, the pyrometer should move. Not a lot. We're not moving, so still, when you're driving around, that's good to know, especially if you're running a tuner. That's almost a requirement so that you can not melt anything inside the engine. But I think I got this one for, I want to say 150. I'll double check and put the actual product in the description, but I found that to be cheap and functional and fairly easy to install. I can actually show you that as well. So go into the hood here. Just gotta find the release latch. Sorry, with the sun glare, it's a little hard to see. So the pyrometer, that sensor comes out here, and I tapped into the driver's side manifold there. You need a basic tap and die set to do that, but that's fairly easy. The actual instructions for the boost sensor said to literally drill into this Y pipe and put it in there, but I really didn't like that. So me and my friend, we came up with this solution where we tapped into the mass airflow, the manifold absolute pressure sensor, or MAP sensor, with this little T junction, and that's where the boost sensor goes. It's clean, it doesn't do too much modification to anything, and it's functional, and as far as I can tell, it's reading accurately. So that's those two. Those are fairly easy to install. And then the trans temp sensor, come down here, it just screws right into this. See if I can zoom in on it. It just screws right into this I don't know what you'd call that, check bolt, but it screws right in, and I haven't had any problems with it since. And as far as I can tell, that's accurate too. So that's the first functional mod. So the second functional mod I wanted to talk about is actually while I'm under the truck and right by the transmission. From factory, at least in the automatic trucks, you don't have to worry about this if you have a ZF6 or ZF5 Powerstroke. But with the E40D and 4R100, right up here, you should be able to see it on yours. But basically from this trans line to this trans line, there will be a tube that goes from one to the other, and it bypasses these two lines, and these two lines go out front to the transmission cooler. And it's called the 4R100 bypass delete mod is what I did. Pretty self-explanatory, but basically that tube, like the title implies, bypasses the transcooler, and Ford did this as a way to help these transmissions warm up faster in colder temperatures, which I suppose if you live up north, like really far up north, this might not be a good mod, but if you live in most of the United States, you're not going to need that, and you want to keep your transmission as cool as possible at all times. So what this bypass delete mod does, I kid you not, I think I only paid 30 or 25 bucks for it on Amazon, is it deletes that tube and forces all the transmission fluid to go to the cooler and back. And I noticed a significant change when I installed it. I originally got this truck out of Louisiana and lived in Mississippi, so when I was driving on a hot day in Mississippi, I would get about 190 to 200 degree transmission temperatures. And after I did this modification, I started getting between 160 and 175, and now that I'm here in the Northeast, I get even cooler of 145 to 150. So I found it fairly functional. And if you are thinking about upgrading to a Mishimoto or a 6-liter transmission cooler, I think that before you do that and spend all that money, definitely check out the 4R100 bypass delete mod. It's much cheaper, much easier. You can do it in your driveway with just basic box wrenches, I'm pretty sure, and you should see some pretty immediate results. So that's the second functional mod. Okay, the third and final functional mod that I want to talk about is a PHP Hydra tuner. These things, when compared to doing serious engine work, are cheap, readily available, and I think easy to install. I got mine from a guy named Fernando at RD2FS, and you can call this dude on Sunday at 9 o'clock at night, and he'll usually answer with a wealth of knowledge on any 7.3 problem you're having. Super good guy. But this adds a lot of functionality to the truck. You can have it custom tuned, you can have it loaded with canned tunes from Power Hungry Performance, or you can download your own tunes selectively from them, and that's what I did. And you can have all the way up to 140 horsepower tune, or you can keep it capped at 65, 80 and have a whole bunch of novelty tunes like whisper mode, high idle, valet mode. The most functional mod, or the most functional part of the Power Hungry Performance tuner, I think anyways, is that you can use it as an anti-theft device. And what I'm talking about here is on these tuners, you can cycle all the way through to a tune that says NS, which stands for no start. So what you can do is, if you're in a sketchy area, because these trucks are very easy to steal, and you can put your truck in the no start tune, and then you can, if I can do it one-handed, that'll be incredible. You can unplug, I don't want to break it. There we go. You can unplug the actual clicker box, and then if someone wants to steal this thing, it'll at least slow them down for a long time, because the truck is pretty much bricked until you take it out of that tune. And I think that's what makes this an extremely functional mod. It wakes the truck up, you get a lot of power. I'll see if I can include a clip of me actually driving in the hot tune but it's what I think is fairly functional. Okay, well, that's all I got for this video. Just made it because I was bored and wanted to share some of this information that I thought might be helpful for some other 7.3 owners. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if I screwed anything up, please tell me. This is my first diesel truck and I'm learning as I go. So thanks.